Double J, Jeff Jarrett here to tell you about SaveWithConrad.com. You've heard Conrad talk about the total nonstop savings they provided current homeowners. But did you know Conrad and his team can also help My World listeners become homeowners? They make buying a home easier than getting the bag after a good housekeeping match. But don't take the Last Outlaw's word for it.
Franklin Dove, Orlando, Florida. After listening to all of Conrad's podcasts and hearing the different stories that he shared, I felt the time was right for me to explore buying a home again, and reached out, and one thing led to another, and finally closed last week. It was excellent. Everything flowed smoothly from my first contact. I just put in the initial request online. Francis reached out. We started the application process, got the approval moving. Holly was great. Larry Thompson was amazing. Everything was smooth. Communication was perfect. Really, it was a much better experience than anything that I could have imagined. My name is Franklin Dove in Orlando, Florida, and I got into my dream home thanks to SaveWithConrad.com.
That's right. In my world, it doesn't get any better than 5 stars. Don't let your landlord get over on you. Walk out on that bad deal and stop throwing your money away on rent today with SaveWithConrad.com. That's right. It's SaveWithConrad.com.
NMLS number 65084, Equal Housing Lender. Woo!
Welcome to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. Well, you know, that's not a rib. She booted. What a rib? No, yeah, I mean, there's no box of gimmicks.
Rumor and innuendo.
I don't deal in rumor and innuendo. And was he there? I was there. I don't give a shit. I ain't scared of shit.
I ain't scared of shit.
Fuck him.
You, Bruce.
I love you. Give me double cheeseburger. Double cheese. Double mayo. Double onion, motherfucker.
Bruce Prichard.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. Bruce, what's going on, man? How are you?
Oh, dude, how can that music not just get you up that opening, get you all fired up and you're ready to go? And by God, it's a beautiful Saturday morning here, and we're ready to rock and roll, man. Let's rock and roll.
It's going to be a good show.
What do you say? I got a brand new record that I got to play. She said, not now, boy, but I did anyway because I'm ready. So ready. Go!
How many primes are you in right now?
Half of one.
Okay. Well, I can't wait until we get all the way in. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us on a Saturday. We normally try to drop on a Friday, but this was a little bit of a crazy week, a special week. And we're going to try to do a special episode today. We're going to be talking about some of the more outlandish and over the top, quote unquote, gimmicks in the history of wrestling. But really, this is going to start with maybe a bit of a celebration, if you will. We lost one of the modern greats, and somebody who I know was near and dear to your heart. I actually found a tweet from April 6, 2014. You sent it out at 8:55 p.m. This was WrestleMania 30, and you tweeted, "Another megastar is born in Bray Wyatt." He had just lost to John Cena. You weren't with the company. You were on the outside. We weren't even doing a podcast yet, but you saw something in Bray Wyatt. And even in the early episodes of Something to Wrestle, when there were hypothetical questions about if you could work with one talent today, who would it be? You gave the same answer every time. Bray Wyatt. What was it about Bray and that character that just attracted you to him so much?
You know, you often hear guys talk about, especially me, it. What's it? How can, what is that special factor about somebody's personality that makes them unique? And it's that it factor. Well, Bray had it. Bray had it. He had everything that goes with it, and made himself unique from the day he was born. Literally just an effervescent personality that captivated not only, the audiences that he performed to, but also everybody that he touched backstage, anyone that had the opportunity and the pleasure to get to know him, they were captivated by that personality, by that smile, by that ability to draw you in and tell you a story and make you want to hear more, make you want to know what is next. And Bray had the special art of, giving you just enough so that you wanted more. But he never gave you what was next until the next time, and then left you wanting more after that. And just a great spirit, great guy, and taken from us way too soon. But man, I think it was the free creative spirit that he embodied, and took everything that he did from Husky Harris to Bray Wyatt to the Fiend to just life in general, and sing a little Aerosmith before, but life's a journey, not a destination, and the light at the end of the tunnel may be you. That was Bray Wyatt. He was color red in a world of black and white, as he used to say, and it was just that uniqueness that set him apart from everybody else. You knew he was different, and you knew that he was special. A lot of times didn't even have to say anything, but you felt it. And anything that someone can do as a performer to make the audience feel is magic. And Bray was able to create magic every time he went out.
We know Bray was the real life Wyndham Rotunda, and of course his father is Mike, and we know him in the WWE land as IRS, Erwin R. Shyster. Of course, he was had quite the career for himself in the NWA and WCW and everywhere else as well. But IRS probably his most notable and most iconic presentation as a character. So I assume that you got to meet Wyndham as a little kid, right? I mean,
I'm told I did.
Yeah.
His brother Love. Probably along the way, Mike probably brought the kids to a show when we were in Florida or something like that. I didn't really remember, but I do remember when he started at FCW, because, it's like, okay, here's an offspring of Blackjack Mulligan, of Mike Rotunda, and, that's a stud on stud. Got to be something there, man. So Bray was a third generation with a pedigree. Like, holy cow. Because for those that don't know, Blackjack Mulligan, Bob Wyndham, was just, he was a megastar in the 70s that was able to go from territory to territory. And wherever he went, Mulligan was on top. Mulligan was a top heel wherever he went. And his last run in WWE, man, he was a huge babyface, a character babyface, just being himself. And I used to love to listen to Dusty Rhodes stories about Baba Jack. We were sitting there, and Pumpkinhead. They go, you over there, and you're drinking your beer like we ain't got no more. Slow down. You do it like Murdoch and Baba Jack. They sit there and they think that the beer is going to go away somewhere, that we can't get more just going down to the stove and get some more beer. They got to drink it all fast, and then they get all fucked up. They fall off the cliff. You got to learn how to sip. Take your time. Enjoy the beer. Have a good time with it. Don't get so fucked up you don't know what's going on. And Baba Jack, and that's Dream's name for Blackjack Mulligan, was Baba Jack. It's just I had the pleasure of meeting Blackjack Mulligan few occasions, and was always like this effervescent guy that made sure that he said hello to everybody, made sure that everybody was taken care of, so to speak, but couldn't have been couldn't have been nicer to me, every single time that I was around him. He's got a reputation, he liked to fight, and tough son of a gun, but you come from that pedigree. And then you look at his dad, Mike Rotunda, unbelievable amateur background, unbelievable background in our business that had done it all. Started in Florida with Barry Windham. And they became a tag team in Florida. They became a tag team in WWE. And Mike Rotunda was like this just unbelievable solid. He was the guy that you wanted on your card because you knew every time you put him out there that he was going to deliver a solid. He was always the most charismatic guy, but yet when the bell rang, he had more charisma than anybody because he just knew what to do. And later on, him coming back is Erwin R. Shyster, IRS, which is a character that will live in infamy in WWE, and was able to pull that off great, and then tell a story when the bell would ring that it was like, okay, this guy's a gimmick in IRS, but he's a wrestler's wrestler that knew what the hell he was doing in the ring and knew exactly how to captivate the audience. And so it's the offspring. Mike married Blackjack's daughter. And man, that pedigree there just in and of itself is holy cow. And they produced 3 amazing children that 2 that went into the business and unbelievable. So it's it's crazy when you think about that, because not all second generation and or third generation talent, they don't all make it.
That's right.
Sometimes they're compared to what came before them. They're compared to their dads, they're compared to their moms, and not always fair, but at the same time, human nature. And Mike was not a second generation, but it was every single one of them were major stars. And I think that Bray, was probably the brightest of all. And you look at, Bo, who I think is an unbelievably talented talent as well. And of course, Micah, his sister. I went to the celebration of life that they had for Bray, and you talk about, so, there's funerals and there's celebrations of life.
Right.
And the Bray celebration of life, man, Micah and Taylor, Bo Rotunda, knocked it. When I say knocked it out of the park, knocked it out of the park. When you imagine how difficult it is to go up and tell stories and give a eulogy for your brother who is no longer with us and left us way, way, way too soon. That's difficult in and of itself that I don't ever want to have to do. And they did it, and they did it in such a classy way, but they did it in a way that captured the essence of Wyndham Rotunda. And it was truly, it was truly beautiful, because it made people laugh. It made people, call back to everything. Man, they had pyro. It was great.
Wait, there was pyro at the celebration of life?
Yeah. It was the CO2 blast, but it was still cool, still fun.
Wow.
It was like when you least expect it, bam, and that's what Bray would have done.
Right.
That's exactly what Bray would want. But Micah and Taylor knocked it out of the park and had everybody laughing and crying, and just remembering the spirit and the good things that Bray touched us all with. It's funny. He told a story about they got a little drunk, and Bray and Taylor took all of their medals and all of their trophies, and ripped them off the wall, and they went in and got all their dad's medals and all of his trophies and all of his stuff, and ripped all the awards down off the wall, and went out and built a huge 10-foot bonfire. And they had all the awards and stuff in a big trash can, and they went to start throwing them in. And that Mike is now awakened because it's 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever it is. And he hears this commotion. Sounds like two drunk kids. And, is that a fire? Went out. And then, what the hell are you doing? We don't want them anymore. And they're throwing away. And Bray's story, when Bray told it to me, was a little more graphic than Taylor, and Taylor's was very classy in the way that he told that story. So it was a lot of fun because I could see it. I could see it. I can remember times when my brother and I would just sit there, and whether it was inhaling too much or drinking too much or whatever the hell it was, then we'd get the giggles, and we would just see how much shit that we get into at the house, and just wait, because my dad wouldn't come yell at us. My dad would just kind of ignore it. And, oh, well, that's Bruce and Tom being Bruce and Tom. But my mom, she would come. So we would just see how long it would take to get her to come downstairs and bust our ass with her shoe. But it was a beautiful celebration of life, and a true celebration, which was what made it nice.
One of the things that really dawned on me when we're talking, and I guess I've been thinking about this more and more since we learned of his passing, is, and I know it's a phrase in Cody's theme song, wrestling has more than one royal family. But you think about Blackjack Mulligan and Barry Windham and, Kendall and Mike, and then now Bo and Bray. I mean, this is a wrestling royalty family. I mean, why don't you think they get discussed as often as, say, the Harts or the Von Erichs or, so many other families?
Well, I think they do, especially internally inside the business. They do, because they were special, and every one of them made an impact. So within the industry, I do believe that they are discussed and have respect they rightfully deserve. Maybe in the public eye, I don't know. Maybe people don't notice it because they don't flaunt it. They're not, it was never the Rotunda Boys or
right.
the Wyndhams or things like that.
I wondered if it was a television thing. Like maybe Blackjack was a huge star before cable television was as big as it would become. Maybe his success sort of predated modern television.
Maybe,
yeah.
but I think because it's a Wyndham Rotunda thing, and it's not just like a Von Erich thing.
I got you,
or something like that. That maybe they don't make the connection. But they don't really know, unless you know that Mike and Barry weren't just tag team partners; they were brother-in-law, and so a lot of people just may not make the connection. I think
I'm enjoying talking about Bray Wyatt with you. A big part of that presentation that so many people gravitated to was sort of that Cape Fear style presentation. And I know you guys had tried something like that before in the mid 90s with Dan Spivey, but the rocking chair, the lantern, and then you saw, Luke Harper and Eric Rowan alongside him. And then of course, eventually Braun Strowman, but that Wyatt family presentation, I mean, this is happening. This exists before you're back with the company. I mean, I was really impressed with that. And I had some pretty quote unquote smart friends in the business, and man, they just talked so lovingly about the creativity from Bray and the in-ring work from Luke Harper. What did you think of the Wyatt family presentation? And man, it sure is sad to know that we don't just suffer the loss of Bray Wyatt, but Luke Harper before him too.
Yeah, I loved the Wyatt family. I thought that was a incredible gimmick, and I think it was true to the performers, if you will. And Bray was their leader. Bray was the guy that brought them all together and kind of, kept them together and made sure that they were represented the way that he wanted them to be represented. So that part of it was real. So I understand. And just the spirit and the way that it was presented, you felt like, all right, man, this is different. This is good. It didn't take you into a religious cult type of thing, but yet you still had that feeling of Bray having that type of control. And he gave you that. You loved him for the performance, and it was, you felt him and you felt everything they did. It was different. It was like Jake the Snake cutting a promo, man. Jake didn't yell and scream because he didn't need to. He would lower his voice, so you had to lean in and listen to it. Bray Wyatt was the same way. It was, you didn't hear Bray scream and yell and be over the top. Bray could bring you down here, and Bray would talk to you and whisper to you, talk about his fireflies and come and, listen to me. That's what he was saying. And he talked about having the whole world in his hands.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a saying or a song. It was about, no, man, I've got all of you watching. I have the whole world in my hand. What he was saying is that I'm going to take you on a journey, and we're going to go for a ride, and I'm driving. And if you want to jump on this ride with me, come jump on this ride with me. And we're going to hit some turns and some curves and some dips that you never expected. You're going to be safe, but it's going to be wild. And Bray was able to captivate an audience in that way. And you listen to everything that he said, it had meaning behind it. In his head, every single thing he said had meaning behind it. And that's what he looked at. Yeah, man, I got you all right here, palm of my hand. And I can do whatever I want with you. I can make you cry. I can make you laugh. I can make you hate me. All in the same night. And that's an art. It's lost art. But Bray took to it instinctively because that's who he was. He was an artist at heart. And when, he was actually an artist, and a great artist at that. I had a lot of his art on display at his Celebration of Life. It was like, very, very Bray. You would go back and sit there and talk to Bray, during the day, and he would just be sitting there with his little sketch pad drawing thing. And he was an artist in every meaning of the word.
We were lucky to see him wrestle John Cena not once, but twice at WrestleMania, including the COVID WrestleMania. We also got a WrestleMania match with Bray and The Undertaker. But not too long after you make your return to WWE, we got a fresh paint of coat, as we like to say here on the show, for the character. We had seen Husky Harris before. We had seen Bray Wyatt before, but now we were going to become introduced to The Fiend. I know we don't usually spend a lot of time talking about current stuff, but I know creatively The Fiend had to be a blast for you because you got to color outside the lines a little bit, right?
Yeah, and again, it was, look, man, it was Bray's vision and had this crazy idea of what he wanted to do and threw it out there, and that was in motion before I came back. And hats off to a former writer, Nick Manfredini, who worked with Bray day in, day out, night in, night out. Not always easy, but to help create that Bray Wyatt version and The Fiend, and be able to really create a brand new character out of a character that you had known for a while. So, big fan, and I was honored to be able to work with him on that and kind of, get in and allow my head to collaborate with them and help move that along and advance that and everything. But yeah, it was great. It really was. I think it was an interesting character, and will go down as history as one of the most ingenious things in the business.
Well, and the thing too is, he created a lot of fun spin-off characters and interesting storylines and things that you might not could do with another character. But one of the things that I don't think gets discussed enough, and again, I know we don't, as a habit, talk about current stuff, but from what I understand, man, that dude was selling some crazy merch. Like, it resonated in a big way with fans who were voting with their wallets. And that Bray Wyatt stuff, man, it was flying off the shelves, no?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was unique.
Yeah.
It was, you had Fiend masks that were just so cool, that on every bit of it, everything that we did was looking at, all right, how does this resonate with the audience? And when you have that type of character that lends itself to so many different items, I can go crazy with it too. You can do too much. But I think that he definitely resonated with the audience, and the audience wanted to support him and show their support in that way.
Well, we hope that you guys will continue to support his legacy. WWE is doing some really nice things, and I encourage everyone to pick up all the Fiend and Bray Wyatt merch you can, and turn on some of those infamous and maybe memorable moments, whether it's the Daniel Bryan cage match or the WrestleMania moment with John Cena. I mean, I'll never forget that Saturday night's main event and the Muscle Man dance, and so many fun moments. And by all accounts, just one of the nicest guys ever in the history of the business, gone way, way too soon. We hope we've done his memory justice.
Yep. Just again, man, wonderful cat. He was just his own man, and it's funny. I know I don't talk about current stuff. This isn't current, but it's a little peek inside. I think everybody thought we were crazy with Firefly Funhouse.
Yep.
I don't know if there were maybe a handful of people. When I say a handful, one handful that thought this is just different enough that this is going to work big time. There were a lot more that were looking at us going, what in the fuck is this?
Yes.
And it's like, just, man, and I'm back new, and I'm just begging, just go with it. Try it. All I'm asking is try it. And we were given a lot of leeway. And again, hats off to Nick, who was creatively in tune with Bray, that we got that leeway, we got that freedom, and push the envelope big time to where, like, this doesn't belong. I'm sure the dirt sheet guys panned it. This is stupid. This is silly. Where's this going to go? I don't get it. That was the point. You weren't supposed to get it. You were just supposed to sit back, enjoy it, and go along for a ride. And it took you on a ride. So, kudos to Bray for being able to pull that off and continue to pull it off in a way that kept people captivated for a long time.
One of my favorite things just from doing this podcast with you is when one of the puppets, the Vince puppet, such good shit, pal. I mean, just hilarious. Great stuff.
Yeah.
Super memorable.
It was fun.
And I'm sure it was fun. And that's what we're going to spend the rest of today's episode talking about, is some of the over-the-top characters and presentations that have existed through wrestling. We both, hold the real life Wyndham in high regard. And we're going to talk about some other guys who we held in high regard, and wrestling was better for having seen them and their performance. And some were over the top. And maybe the first one I remember seeing as a kid, at least in my fandom, was The Missing Link. And I wanted you to talk to us a little bit about the Missing Link character and the presentation, and just what you thought of, I guess, a fellow who other folks would call Dewey.
Yeah, Dewey Robertson, man, was this clean cut. He was Canadian, but it was like clean cut all American guy, with curly hair, short hair, and great body, and he was like the ultimate baby face. If you were going to draw your baby face in the 70s and 80s, not even so much in the 80s, but at least in the 70s, of this is the guy I want to come into my territory and I want to put on top and I want to make him a champion and build everything around him. Dewey had that look, very just straightforward. A big smile, and it was, I think he did okay, but there's times, as we've talked about before, where sometimes you need to go away and learn a new hole. And Dewey went away and learned a new character, shaved his head in a bizarre way, grew the mustache and goatee and whatever he did, and just pitch black, and painted his face green and blue and black, and just presented himself in a way that I don't think we'd ever seen before. You saw guys who may have painted their face, even not so much then, but this was different, and this was new at that time, in that he came across as the legitimately crazy, where I think there were, fans that, I know this is entertainment and I know this is real. But that guy may be off his rocker a little bit. And he was able to go in wherever he went. And a lot of times, first he would go in as a heel and be that nasty monster heel working with your top pretty boy baby faces that he used to be. And then after a while, and I think that in Mid-South, I want to say that Mid-South, probably the first time that he was so unique and he was so charismatic, the audience started to like him. And he's tough and he's crazy. Well, yeah, what if you put him against, the other tough guys and the other crazy guys? I bet he would come out on top. There was an unpredictable aspect of the Missing Link. And it was a beautiful example of taking what traditionally would have been your white meat baby face and destroying their look altogether and creating a brand new character. And the success of that character has become what Dewey Robertson, probably spent less time of his career as the Missing Link. He traveled with his wife. There was a point where his wife, in a lot of places, was his valet. Really nice lady. In Mid-South, when we turned him babyface, put him with Dark Journey as his valet. And it was kind of the Beauty and the Beast type of thing. But you got to see, a guy that could wrestle. He didn't cut promos because he wasn't good. He wasn't good as a babyface promo. It was kind of bland, kind of boring, Canadian, eh? But as a human being, I got to know him in Mid-South, and it was very free thinker. Believe they lived in a nudist colony, he and his wife. So they were nudist, and really enjoyed that lifestyle. But he was one of the most down to earth people that I ever met. And when you look at that, you look at the gimmick, and then you're sitting in a hotel room and you're staring at him without the makeup on, but he still got the hair, you know, and his head shaved and in this weird way. And he's sitting back and very philosophical and invited me to the room one night to partake in some inhaling of flowers. And when I get there, he says, "Hey man, I'm sorry. All I've got are, you know, the leaves, man, but let's go ahead and smoke those too." I'm like, "Yeah, I got bud, man. It's okay." But he wanted to, he just wanted to contribute. But all he had was leaves. So it was like we took the leaves and we mixed the leaves all up and we just smoked everything. And then he would become very, very philosophical and very interesting, very well read, well educated. And you look at that gimmick, and is the old timers used to say the fans would see a baby face and they love that baby face on camera and at the arenas. But by God, you meet them in real life and they're assholes. And then you see that heel that you despise and you hate and you just want to kill in the arena and on TV. You meet them in real life and they're the nicest guys in the world. That was the missing link. You see him on TV and you think, oh my God, this guy's crazy. This guy is out there, bizarre, beyond anything that you would ever want to come close to approaching. You meet him in real life, and he's one of the most charming individuals that you will ever meet. So, you know, that was crazy. And it is not always easy to portray a gimmick like the missing link. Keep that gimmick going for any length of time. And Dewey was able to do that. And that's an art form. And it's just, you look at some of the other, you know, guys in history's past that were, man, you know, anytime you would look at somebody and you think, well, I'll approach him, but you know what? I'm not going to approach that guy. And you would see people on TV, then you'd see him in real life, and it didn't match up necessarily. There's a guy named Pampiro Firpo, and Pampiro Firpo, I believe that was his real name. Don't even really know, but all I knew him is, you know, was Pampero, and he was about 5'0" and cut these incredible promos. And he go, oh yeah. And he was Argentinian. But he was portrayed on television as this uncontrollable wild man. All of his matches, man, were short, and he would just explode out of the corner, and he would tear into his opponents and then cut these absolutely bizarre promos. And he was the wild man of the Pampas, you know, Pampiro Firpo. Real life, you meet this guy, and same thing. Very well educated. Like, I don't know where the asshole came in him. You know, because as a heel, you need to have a little bit of asshole in you. I would venture to say that Pampiro Firpo was one of the nicest human beings I have ever met in my life.
Really?
That just cared for and about everybody. Like if somebody was having a hard day, he would do whatever it took to make sure that, you know, if he could do something to make their day better, he would. Every time I would see him, and years later, when he lived in San Jose, I believe, but Northern California, and he would come to our shows when we would have TV out there. Well, by then, he had cut all of his hair very short and shaved the beard and the mustache. And this guy walks up to me, stands in front of me in a shirt, short sleeve shirt and tie. And he's like, Bruce, how are you? And I'm like, hi, how are you? And I had no idea who it was. And he says, Pampiro. I looked at him like, okay, you know Pampiro? And then I was like, son of a bitch, you are. And I mean, he was a little bit crazy, but I mean, crazy in a good way. In that, he was a fun crazy. It wasn't an unpredictable, oh my gosh, he's going to become unhinged crazy. And that is what I always just found so unique about some of the guys that had these larger than life, crazy gimmicks. And Firpo was somebody that people would run from. It was like they would scatter because they thought, oh my God, he's beyond, he's not right. And he'll bite your head off. Literally. People thought he would bite your head off and then he would attack you because that's what they saw. That was the presentation on television of Firpo, the wild man of the Pampas. You can't control him. And he was for me anyway, he was a throwback. The very first time that I went to Sam Houston Coliseum in Houston, see live wrestling, 5-6 years old, whatever it was. And the first match featured a guy by the name of the Moon Man. 1969. We landed on the moon. Neil Armstrong took his first steps on the moon. This is one giant leap, whatever the fuck. You know the same. And the moon craze, that was all the craze. It was, oh my God, we landed on the moon. Is there life on the moon? And in the first match, or the first time I ever went to Sam Houston Coliseum, was the Moon Man. And this guy comes out to the ring and he's got a pillowcase over his head. And he's managed by Gary Hart. And he's pacing the ring. And he's got the pillowcase over his head and all this shit. And Gary is just standing in the corner. I forget who his opponent was. Probably still have the program. But all of a sudden they go, from weighing, it's like weighing in at 235 pounds from the moon. He is the Moon Man. And Gary Hart rips the pillowcase off of him. And he's got this long fucking hair, big, long black beard and mustache and crazy. And he just goes wild. He attacks his opponent. And I mean, and it's all just one way. And he just total squash. Beats the shit out of his opponent, and blah, 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 and pins him. And Gary Hart, then after the match, goes back and puts the pillowcase on his head and grabs him by the hair. Now he's got control of the Moon Man and drags him all the way back to the dressing room. I'm 6 years old. 1969. I just saw a man that hailed from the moon.
Yes, you did.
Wrestle. And his name was the Moon Man. And that scared the living shit out of me. Because there's part of me that was like, they bring him back with them?
Oh.
Just like what we don't know. Come on, man. I'm a kid. I don't know. They could have.
Well, here's what I know. You were looking for something fresh. And that makes me think of today's sponsor, HelloFresh, where you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. So skip the trip to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. We want you to kick off a fresh fall routine with HelloFresh. You see, HelloFresh handles all the meal planning and shopping to deliver you everything you need to cook up a tasty meal right at home. You see, they do the hard part and you get to take the credit. And when it comes to options, honestly, more is more. And that's why HelloFresh's menu includes 40 recipes and over 100 add-on items for you to choose from each and every week. You'll get out of that rut. They've even got quick and easy recipes and 15-minute meals. It doesn't get any easier than that. But this way you get to spend less time planning and shopping and cooking. And now you get to spend more time with them. You get the easy time-saving breakfasts and family dinners. They've even got kid-approved lunches and snacks, something for everybody. But what I like most about this is, man, they take the guesswork out of it. The directions and instructions, man, they come with pictures. They're so easy, even Bruce and I can do it. And let me just tell you, you want some bonus points in your household? Go cook with your wife. And it's going to be easy because she's not going to send you to the store. Oh, we forgot about this. Will you stop and pick up that? Dude, we've all done that. And here's what we wind up doing. I wasn't sure which one to buy, so I bought all three. You're wasting money. You're wasting time. Let's just get to the fun part. Let's make it a memorable dinner. HelloFresh can make it happen for you. And when they say fresh, they mean it. It goes from the farm to your door in less than 7 days. I can't recommend this enough. I have to admit, I was a little overwhelmed when I heard some of these recipes and thought, I don't know that I could do that. But the instructions were simply so fast, so easy. Seriously, there's 40 new weekly recipes every week. And maybe you're vegan or veggie. They got you covered. Maybe you're looking to do family friendly. Maybe you want fit and wholesome. They've got something for every diet. Check it out. You'll be glad you did. Go right now to HelloFresh.com/50STW. Use our code 50STW and you'll get 50% off plus 15% off the next 2 months. That's HelloFresh.com/50STW and use the code 50STW for 50% off plus 15% off for the next 2 months. You're going to love it. It's HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. So, Bruce, I wanted to ask, you listed some other crazy gimmicks, and we kind of started the conversation about Missing Link. And something I always wondered is, why don't you think he had a bigger, more national run? Like, that dude got like a centerfold layout in Sports Illustrated in '85, like Who's Fooling Whom or something like that. But it was an iconic thing. I mean, people lost their mind when Hulk Hogan was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And that's, the year that WrestleMania first came to prominence, and it's a part of pop culture. It feels like the Missing Link would have had a bigger run with Vince. Why don't you think he did more there?
I think Dewey being Dewey. Dewey was very unconventional, and I don't know that Dewey could really conform to WWE, now, then, or, what have you. I think that it was probably that more than anything. I think it was just, he liked to be his own man, and he did have a good national run. Once he left there, it was just more of a regional national run, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So he did well in the territories that he went to, but it just didn't, for New York, no, that didn't necessarily work out.
Something else that
wasn't the Moon Man, didn't come from the moon.
Right. Well, there you go.
Well,
is it true that the Moon Man once got a win over Buddy Rogers? Is that right?
No, but
okay.
Spaceman did.
Okay. My apologies.
No, see, we were talking about the moon. There were men from the moon, but before that, okay, there were spacemen that actually worked in the business. And the most famous is a gentleman by the name of Frank Hickey. Okay. He was known as, what's that?
I said, okay, I'm learning about the spaceman.
Yes, it was a spaceman, Frank Hickey. And he would wear a full body suit and a cape, and he would wear a helmet as well, kind of like an old wrestling shooter, amateur wrestling helmet, but it was just kind of a mask with the face cut out. He would be the spaceman, Frank Hickey. He drove an Oldsmobile that he took the Olds off of the nameplate on the car and put space mobile. Okay. I don't know exactly where the hell he was from, but I know he spent his last days in Tennessee. Became a good friend of my brother Tom. And Bobby Heenan used to tell me stories about Spaceman Frank Hickey. And every time he wanted to be in the circus. Frank Hickey wanted to be the guy that got shot out of the cannon at the circus. That was like his life goal, his life dream. So every time that you would shoot Frank Hickey in for a backdrop, Frank Hickey would come off the ropes and go, "Shoot me to the moon." It would take these big ass, backdrops and everything, because that was his way of being the man in the circus in the cannon that got shot to the moon. And gimmick, I mean, every single thing about him was a gimmick. If he met you for the first time, he would speak to everybody else in Carney as if you didn't know what he was saying. Very unique. But again, man, a character that, like, if you grew up in the South in Tennessee, I think everybody knew who he was. He had some national exposure early on, but even for the wrestling business, you might say that Frank might have even been a little bit too much, too gimmicky for this business, and that's crazy. But he was a unique character that had fame. Like I say, man, won a version of the world title. Man, Buddy Rogers put him over, and he wore that belt, never dropped it. Had it till the day he died. But he lived in a one room little apartment somewhere in Tennessee. But my brother Tom and Frank Morrell, who was the referee in Memphis, they would always travel and always stop and go see Frank Hickey on their way, and sit with him and listen to him tell stories, and those characters that are forgotten. If you were to show that to the audience today, they'd be like, "What the hell is going on here?"
Right.
You're going to watch an old, bad black and white movie of Superman or something, and that's what you would have seen with Frank Hickey, except not nearly as good of a worker. But it was crazy, and that's the beauty of gimmicks, that people can only associate the person with the gimmick. So no matter what you do, is like, if only people had ever only seen me as Brother Love, they would, I would just be that guy in the red face and the white suit. To them, they couldn't picture me in a pink shirt and headphones and an Aerosmith. That's not what they saw on TV. That's not who they got to know. It's not the guy they hated. They don't know me well enough to hate me yet. Give them time, man. You'll get to know me and hate me. It's okay.
Talk to me about
the best.
Terrible Ted. That's something that I've always wanted to ask you about. As I understand it, there's been a handful of quote unquote wrestling bears. And I know that Tracy Smothers has told me about his time wrestling a few bears here and there. But as I understand it, Terrible Ted, he was a regular part of Stu Hart's repertoire to the point where he kept him at the house. Is that right? Stu Hart kept a bear at the house. The kids played with a bear. That can't be real.
Yeah. Under the steps of the dungeon in Calgary, Canada, Stu Hart had a wrestling bear that lived at his house and slept under the steps. I mean, where do you want him to live? What, a bear can't live in a fucking mansion?
I guess. I just didn't, it's not something you hear about all the time. It was a
working bear. It was on top.
Okay.
It was on top. But there wasn't just Terrible Ted, man. There was, so you had Ted. Ted was kind of, that Northwest all right, and Calgary and all that stuff. You know, that was their bear. They had everybody had their own bears. There was Victor the wrestling bear, and I want to say Victor was one of Nick Roberts' bears. Nick Roberts was a promoter and old wrestler out of Amarillo, Texas, and he had Victor the wrestling bear. So he would tour, you know, pretty much Middle America and things like that. With that, you had the Bear Man up in the Maritimes in Nova Scotia. That he had a few bears, and they would teach him to work and all this shit. But the first one that Nick Roberts had was Ben, Gentle Ben. Remember the TV show? You probably don't. You were here the TV show Gentle Ben?
Yes.
Kid had the pet bear.
Yes.
All right. So Nick capitalized off of that, had Ben the wrestling bear. People thought, oh my God, it's Gentle Ben from the TV show. I want to go see Gentle Ben. Like, this is Ben the wrestling bear. And promoters would a lot of times add in the come see Gentle Ben. But the gimmick with wrestling the bears is that the bears actually were wrestlers.
Right.
They could work. All right. Now there were some shooter bears. There were some shooter bears and there were some hooker bears.
Oh.
You don't want to fuck with, man.
Okay.
Don't get the bear mad. And the gimmick was you would have the handler. Nick Roberts, we'll use Nick in this instance. Nick would be the referee. So Nick would bring the bear down to the ring and all this stuff, and the bear goes up the steps and gets, crawls in the ring and all this shit. And they introduce him. He gets up on his hind legs and raises his little paws. And, Nick's controlling him the whole time. Then you get your opponent in the ring, and Nick takes the leash off. Rut-row.
Uh-oh.
And it's on. And the bear would come to the ring, stand on its hind legs, and he would lock up. You do a go behind on the bear would hook you, the bear would either do like an ankle pick, or the bear would hip toss you. And you get up like, holy shit, then the bear would go like to pin you. And usually it'd let you kick out the first time. And then it's like you go around and you try to get to the bear and you go behind again. Now he does a flying mare. All right. Snap takeover. Then the bear would you'd get down on, now you're on the ground and you get down on all fours. Now the bear would ride you like an amateur. The bear would mount you. Now, in theory, it's like a wrestling match. Wrestler gets behind you and they ride you and they get you in a waist lock. When it's a bear doing it to a human, it's a little more suggestive, let's just say.
Okay.
And so that, that's fun for people and everything because, the bear could have his way with you anytime he really wants. And they had muzzles on the bear. Sometimes they put, gloves on the paws. But most of Nick's, that's Nick right there, man. If you guys are watching on YouTube, Nick is the one in the trunks with the stars on it. He was from Amarillo. And his didn't wear the gloves, okay? And they would have sometimes, you'd go, hey, wrestle the bear, last 5 minutes with the bear and get $1,000. No, look, nobody can last 5 minutes with the bear. I don't give a shit who you are. You couldn't last 5 minutes with the bear. Now, Danny Hodge, legend has it, tried to stretch the bear one time.
Oh, God.
Yeah, true story. And, that didn't go too well. But yeah, the bear, as soon as the bear's ready to go home,
it's over.
He's going home.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going home. Like, when he gets bored in there, he's going home. But the other fun thing about the fun thing. So after each match, the bear got his payday. And his payday was what?
The payday.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
His payday was
A bunch of peanut butter.
No, it was like a Coca-Cola. All right, a bottle of Coke. But in it was like a bunch of honey and like other syrupy stuff. And he would take the bottle of Coke and he would put it in his mouth and sit on his hind legs and drink the Coke. And then Nick would, hold out another one. Then he'd take that one and gulp it down. Then he would walk around the ring and, hit all four sides and go home and get a 6-pack of beer and whatever else he did. But so
wait, hang on. Who was advocating for the bear? I mean, these days we hear a lot about hot dogs and handshakes, but it sounds like this bear, he was quite the draw. And you guys were, you were working him for honey. I mean, we needed a bear. We needed a bear union.
We paid his agent.
So
I don't know how much of that the bear was actually getting.
Right.
But,
sounds like, was Moolah his agent too?
No.
Okay.
No, that was like plus midgets and girls, but and the bear. That would be a big thing, back in the day. And one of the gimmicks was you would have a battle royal
with the bear.
No.
Okay.
Battle royal. And the guy that, how was it, man? Winner or regardless, man, let's just say that you had Gary Hart working with the bear.
Okay. All right.
Gary would get dressed and all the boys would go and take either molasses or honey.
Oh no.
And they would like slap Gary on the ass or slap whoever's working with the bear. All right. Everybody would get like honey and shit on their hands and go by and like kind of slap him. Hey man, good luck tonight. Slap him on the ass. So when the match starts, the bear, because he's a bear, okay? The bear smells the honey.
Of course he does.
The bear wants that honey.
Yeah, he does.
Bear don't give a shit about fucking, hey, drop down tackle, get it again. It's like, we did drop down tackle. Fuck you, man. I want the honey. And it smells like it's coming out of your ass.
Oh, God.
So he goes, and no matter what kind of muscle you have on the bear has a very long tongue. Big tongue. And that's what the bear uses. Get that honey.
My goodness.
So this bear tongue comes out, and the bear like goes and basically starts attacking their ass because it's got honey on it.
Right.
He wants that honey. And if he tastes a little bit on the outside, he knows there's got to be more inside. So bears do what bears do. They go after that honey. I'm opening this. I should share it, but I won't. We'll talk about that after the call. This text I just got, beyond bizarre. Holy shit. That's crazy.
Listen, it sounds like that bear may have had a bad habit. And I just want to remind everybody listening to this that cold turkey might be great on sandwiches, but there's a better way to break your bad habits. We're not talking about some silly, weird mind voodoo from your favorite dirt sheet rider in California. We're talking about our sponsor, Fume. You see, they look at the problem in a different way. Not everything in a bad habit is wrong. So instead of a drastic, uncomfortable change, why not just remove the bad from your habit? Fume is an innovative, award-nominated device that does just that. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses all-natural, delicious flavors like raspberry lemon, or orange vanilla, or sparkling grapefruit, or maple pepper, or white cranberry, or my wife's favorite, the crisp mint. You get it. Instead of bad, Fume is good. It's a habit you're free to enjoy, and it makes replacing your bad habit easy. Your Fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial and is designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, giving your fingers a lot to do, which is helpful for de-stressing and anxiety while breaking your bad habit. And I got to tell you, my wife absolutely loved the taste the first time she tried it. It was much more flavorful than she thought. It felt very, very fresh. She loves the crisp mint, highly recommends it. She also tells me it's well weighted. It's perfectly balanced. It's just fun to fidget with. By the way, it looks cool and it's made of beautiful wood. It just, I don't know, dude. It's a vibe. Check it out. You'll like it. Stopping is something we all put off because it's hard. But dude, switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. Fume has now helped over 100,000 customers and has thousands of success stories, and there's no reason that can't be you. Join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup from destructive habits by picking up the Journey Pack today. Head to tryfume.com and use the code WRESTLE to save 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. That's tryfum.com and use the code WRESTLE to save an additional 10% off your order today. That's tryfume.com/wrestle and use the code WRESTLE to save an additional 10% off your order today. Bruce, we had a lot of fun talking about bears, but the rumor and innuendo is that Stu Hart once had a tiger too. Have you heard of somebody wrestling a tiger?
Yes, Stu.
That's real. He wrestled a tiger.
Huh?
Okay. Well, I've never heard of this. What can you tell us
Like
about?
You've never wrestled a tiger?
Nope. Not one time.
Because you didn't train.
No, I didn't.
So I understand. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. But it was like I thought everybody wrestled a tiger at least once in their life.
So down at the Prichard's, I know it's not this order, but it is for me, the Prichard Jacob Academy there in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Tiger Day where they teach guys how to work with a tiger, a working tiger.
There should be.
Okay.
If you want to make money, you want to make money or not?
Okay. Learning.
But there just aren't enough tigers, that want to go through the PC and all that anymore. It's kind of like, orangutans and things
What?
like
Oh
that.
God. We're looking at a photo right now of a tiger with Stu Hart. I mean, I thought lions and tigers and bears, oh my, was just like a Wizard of Oz thing. I didn't realize that's also just what's hanging out in the damn dungeon.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was a working tiger.
So wait, have you seen this tiger called Spots?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't think it was a cheetah, but he's calling spots with his stripes. He's a spot caller.
Absolutely.
Okay. Is it also true that Bruno Sammartino once wrestled an orangutan? That can't be real.
Yes, it is.
What? They'll rip your damn face off. Why? How does that happen?
Not a working one. Jesus Christ, man.
Come
on.
I'm just trying to learn, Bruce.
We're talking about a working orangutan. We're not talking about one just out in the woods or in the jungle and shit that jumps down off the tree and wants to rip your head off. Now they jump off the tree and go, "Hey man, how you doing? You want to learn how to work? You got some good size. You got a good look. You ever think about working?
You ever tell him to get off?
I got a place for you to go. You can go down to Knoxville, Tennessee to the old Prichard Jacobs Wrestling Academy, man. You make you some big money. Now I'm only going to take 74% of your earnings, but I'll make damn sure. What do you eat, by the way? And I'll get that orangutan, whatever the hell he wanted to eat.
Didn't you have a conversation like that at the Roxy in California and you told the orangutan to get off the gas? Something like that? Yeah.
Something like that. Matter of fact,
that
was a giant ox, actually. But so, Clint Eastwood movie. The hell was the name of it with the orangutan?
Every Which Way But Loose or something like that?
Every Which Way But Loose. Okay, so I met him.
You met Clint? Oh, the orangutan. Okay.
Oh, the orangutan.
Okay.
Okay. It was a working orangutan.
What? What does that mean? I'm trying to learn.
There are times that you dumbfound me. This is so simple. It's so simple. The orangutan knew how to lock up, call spots, and all this shit.
What?
You laugh. He did.
The orangutan called spots.
It depended on if he was working heel or babyface. He called the match. The babyface, it was like you called the match.
Okay.
But he would lock up with you. He would grab you in a headlock. You could go behind, and he would do the underhook and fucking hip toss you. Yeah. No, where have you been, man? Alabama? Do you guys not get,
You You ever see somebody teach a bear to get color? I mean, like an orangutan or a tiger, or any of these working animals. They ever
they'll get color on you if they want. And so again on YouTube, you just saw the orangutan. One of the nicest guys you ever want to meet. He was so cool. What?
You just said the orangutan is one of the nicest guys you could ever want.
Oh my God, he was incredible. He was so cool. It was.
Did he sign you an autograph?
No, we took a picture though.
Yeah, of course you did.
It was me, my wife, John Layfield, his wife, Bubba Ray Dudley, Devon. I think that was it that went in and the orangutan, he wanted to meet us, so we had like a little meet and greet.
Sure.
God, he asked for pictures, autographs. So to orangutan, I go 8 for you.
Oh, will you stop?
What? No, he was cool, dude. When I mean, I know it sounds stupid, but he was cool as shit. Because orangutans can fucking rip your face off.
Yes, they can. Yeah. Yep.
Like they will fuck you up if they want.
They'd like to do it. Actually, they prefer it.
Yes, this one was just so cool. He took my hat and like put it on his head and everything, and then he would tease me and he would take it off and like put it back on me, and then he would take it real quick and he would wear it and he would like kind of go around and all this shit.
But if he wanted to take your face off, he could do that too.
Yeah, I was ready to give him the hat.
Is that why you took Layfield? In case he needed a lariat or 3D or whatever? Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the strength of an orangutan, and I know they don't do it anymore. They probably shouldn't have done it then. But I am spitting fucking facts here and knowledge that just like you are not going to get on any other podcast.
I agree. And I mean, today's episode is unofficially sponsored by Prime. Thank you, Logan Paul.
Yeah. So it's like when he would grab you, there is a strength and a presence that it's like, oh, thank God this orangutan likes me, because he will let you know in a split second that, yeah, man, I'd own you if I wanted to.
If I wanted you to be hooked, you'd be hooked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just so kind and just so, and again, it was just a small group of us because he doesn't like to be around a lot of people. And they were like, they were waiting to see how he was going to react to us, if there were too many of us and things like that, or if he was comfortable with it. And he, if you're comfortable with them, they're comfortable with you. Like if you're not, oh my God, I'm afraid and everything and all this shit. And we were all like, we're comfortable. We've worked with orangutans and shit before. So it was a good meeting.
Hey, let's talk about somebody who helped promote some of these over the top characters and acts, and maybe one of the more notorious promoters in history who would promote some of these crazy gimmicks, Jack Pfeffer.
Oh my God.
We haven't spent a lot of time talking about him here on the program, but a lot of our listeners who fancy themselves as wrestling historians, they maybe know a thing or two. But if you just grew up watching the golden age of the WWF, you might not even know the name Jack Pfeffer. Tell us about Jack.
So Jack Pfeffer was a promoter in New York City. What Jack Pfeffer was famous for is if Vince, the old man, had Bruno Sammartino versus Argentina Rocca on top, Pfeffer would have matches in New York City somewhere else. And he would have like Bruna Sammartina versus Anthony Rocco. I mean, just shit like that. It would be if you had the Nature Boy, he had the Earth Boy. everything was a ripoff. Everything was a scam. And I believe he actually got Rocca for a while. He was a filthy human being, like as far as hygiene and things go. And he had really long fingernails and would smoke a cigar and just, but the stories of Jack Pfeffer, Paul Bosch had a big picture of Pfeffer in his office and would just laugh anytime like some outlandish gimmick would come around. It's like, oh, Jack Pfeffer would have loved this guy. He would have had him on top everywhere he went. So Pfeffer would take whatever was hot in the New York market and he would make an imitation. Instead of Gorilla Monsoon, you had a Mansoon. That type of advertisement. So the people are looking at it going, oh my God, is that Gorilla Monsoon here? It's got to be, and because you're looking at it so quick, and he would make the advertisements look in a way so that you didn't notice it was Bruna instead of Bruno, and he was the ultimate promoter, Carney, not Connie, you're Connie, of the ages. And all the promoters all across the country all knew, Pfeffer's tactics, and there were just legendary stories about Jack Pfeffer and the scams that he would pull. And, it would be, you would have, Moondogs, he'd have Mooncat. There actually were Moondogs, back in the day. There was one that, everybody, I think, maybe still modern day remembers, a tag team of the Moondogs with Rex and Spot, which was Randy Colley and Sailor White. They also had Sailor White was Spot, I don't know, but they were a tag team. They worked mainly in the Northeast. They came down and did some stuff in Mid-South and worked in Tennessee a little bit. But before the Moondogs, there was a Moondog Lonnie Main. Moondog Main. And he had long blonde hair, and he had the white goatee and mustache and everything. Mainly worked in Northern California, but he came down and he worked the Dallas territory, worked Houston for a while. Big guy, too. I'd say that Lonnie was probably 280, 290, pushing 300, but tall and big, but not muscular or anything. Just he looked like a Moondog. If you're going to have a Moondog, Lonnie Main would be a Moondog. And great worker, great promo. Gary Hart managed him there. And one night in Houston, Moondog Main was in the main event against Jose Lothario. Moondog used to love to do big spots off the top rope. Moondog was doing that flying headbutt long before, there were rings that people could actually do that and not kill themselves. Well, one night, Moondog's working with Jose in Houston. And Moondog liked to take the slam off the top rope. And Moondog goes up to the top. Jose comes in, nails Moondog, goes for the big slam. Boom. Moondog takes the slam. Jose goes for the cover. Moondog's supposed to kick out. Moondog doesn't kick out. The referee counts 1, 2, Bronco Lubitsch. And it's 3. And Jose gets up and he's disgusted. Oh, shit. Referee raises his hand and, they're like kind of pissed off. Gary rolls in the ring and he goes over and he's like shaking Moondog, and Moondog's not moving. Oh, fuck, man. So Paul gets in the ring and checks on him. And now Paul smells liquor. and he surmises that the Moondog's drunk and knocked himself out. Paul leaves the ring disgusted, and they're like, should we call an ambulance or should we, call somebody to get him? And he's like, he's drunk. Just let him stay there. And that's the end of the show. People are leaving and all this stuff. Some people hanging around because Moondog is just laying in the middle of the ring, passed out. And Paul's pissed. And that was the last time Moondog Maine appeared in Houston.
I wanted to ask you.
Pay to be a Moondog.
I want to ask you about a quote from Jack Pfeffer. I know we're bouncing around a little bit, but I mean, my understanding is that he sort of exposed the business long before Vince McMahon did. And along the way, he had some pretty memorable quotes. He said something like, "Freaks I love, and they're my specialty. I'm very proud of my monstrosities. You can't get $1 with a normal looking guy, no matter how good he can wrestle. Those birds with shaved, egg-shaped heads, handlebar mustaches, tattooed bodies, big stomachs, they're for me. None of these atrocities of mine could find their way out of a phone booth or sock their way out of a cellophane sack, but that's not important. I teach them their routines and ship them out, and the suckers think they're hot stuff." Wow, what an approach to wrestling, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in many ways, it was every promoter's approach to it.
Of course.
Jack just took it to the extreme because there were guys like, I tell you what Jack hated. Jack hated the Luthezes of the world. Guy walks around, struts in, and, Mr. Hooker, I'm going to wrestle. I'm going to hook you. That didn't interest Jack. To Jack, that didn't sell tickets.
Right.
Gimmicks sold tickets. And attractions sold tickets. Not a great wrestler.
Right.
Fine, you can hook somebody. You can beat somebody for real, but are you going to put asses in seats? And sometimes Jack took that to the extreme. That was the problem, And Jack would still rip off. I could see him, having a guy called, Boo Pez for Luthez type shit. But he was always about, the gimmicks, man, larger than life. Give me somebody that you're not going to see on the street in New York City. And if you do see them on the street in New York City, you're going to run because they're different and different cells. And, you go back, man, exposing the business. What is there to expose? I know that I come from that world. You protected the business at all costs. Somebody said wrestling was fake, you beat their ass.
Right.
And I find it, laughable today, again, as a society and times. We grow up, we change, we get educated, we learn things, and it's okay. Because I think that everybody that was watching, even then, I mean, as a kid, I watched and I went, this is the greatest thing in the world. This is what I want to do. This is my life choice. But I knew that, my dad, somebody hits somebody in the face that hard, they'd be all cut up and bruised and broken bones. And I was like, so there was part of it, okay, I got. They're not trying to make. But it's still, there's nothing fake about it because it's the most brutal performance in the entire world. It is a performance, and it always has been. No matter what anybody tells you, it always has been. You go back into the days of, oh my God, they worked 3 hours without a fall because they wanted to work 3 hours without a fall for a return. They quickly realized real matches don't draw money.
Right.
Real issues do. And they had to create issues to create interest, to get people to actually buy tickets and be invested. Because so-and-so is going to wrestle so-and-so, the winner will be the champ. Well, who is so-and-so?
Yeah.
Is he flamboyant? Is he over the top? What is it? And that's what Jack Pfeffer brought. But as you go on, I love it that the people that like to go, oh well, Vince, before Vince exposed the business, man, Vern Gagne, Roy Shires, okay, all went to the athletic commissions in the 70s and said, hey guys, this isn't real.
Yeah.
What we do is entertainment. What we do is a performance. It's an exhibition. We know who's going to win. We're not having a contest here to get out of paying the fees of the athletic commissions. So long before there was Vince McMahon doing that, there was the Roy Shires of the world, the Vern Gagnes, the guys that had the aura of, my God, this is real wrestling bullshit. They all did it. They all did it for the one simple reason, and the same reason that Vince did it, was because of the athletic commission. Athletic commission probably is a better term, but because of the athletic commissions, it did nothing for the business, did nothing to protect it or regulate it. They were only there to collect their taxes, an extra tax that you're already paying taxes, but because you do wrestling and boxing, we're going to give you another one. Like, where the hell does that come from? So that was, when you talk about exposing the business, that wasn't exposing the business. It was saying, hey, this isn't fair. Are you taxing movies and television shows that do stunts similar to what we do, but without as much supervision? No, you don't. So it was simply a business move. And it was a business move long before we did it on a national basis. And there are still states that feel that we fall under the Boxing and Wrestling Commission, which is crazy, man. It's laughable when you think about it, that state government actually supports that and funds it. We fund it. You know what I mean?
You talked about, when they realized real matches wouldn't draw money, you needed some real issues. And then you said, hey, we needed who is so-and-so? We needed somebody who was over the top and outlandish and flamboyant. Maybe the first guy that I know of in history who was like that is Gorgeous George. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Because Gorgeous George came in the golden era, in the era of television. So for the first time, you were getting exposed to a form of entertainment that a lot of people had never been exposed to. And it's on your television screen where you can sit in your house and watch something taking place in Hollywood, California, live. And people would gather around stores, appliance stores, where they would have TVs in the windows so that you could see, hey, buy a television, black and white TV. And in a black and white television, man, what comes to life is a bleached blonde, living, breathing orchid by the name of Gorgeous George. His real name was George Wagner. He came from Houston, Texas. He was just a guy, man, wrestled, as George Wagner, and mediocre success. Bleached his hair blonde, used his wife as his valet, had other valets like servants. He would go to the ring, man, in these elaborate, long before there was Ric Flair, man, Gorgeous George had the robes that were to die for. Beautiful, just gorgeous robes, bleached blonde hair, had bobby pins in his hair. And he would throw out gold bobby pins to the audience. And everybody would call him every derogatory term in the world that you could imagine and think of. He ain't no man, he's a fairy. And just all this. And George played it all up. Little did they know that, hey man, he's married. That's his wife. Here is the straightest guy, you could imagine, that is playing this flamboyant character to just tap in to some of those inner feelings that you can only get out at a wrestling match or a television screen. And George was a nasty heel. And the fact that this guy was actually tough and could actually back up his words, that infuriated fans all that much more and made you want to hate him even more. He was also famous for one of the first, most famous hair matches. And the most famous one, he was already bald. So he had a match where the loser got their head shaved. George lost, got his head shaved. He's bald now, lost his golden locks, wants a rematch, and says, if I lose this one, shave my wife's head, my valet. You know exactly what's going to happen now.
Right.
George is never going to lose. You're not going to shave a woman's head.
No.
And George did the job.
How about that?
Shaved his wife's head. And that, but that's the kind of businessman that George was. He understood what people wanted to see, what they were willing to pay for. And when you get them, when you are able to attract them for that, you have to deliver. And he got his heat all the way up until that point. And then he delivered when it was time to deliver. And that was, again, another, beauty of Gorgeous George, but an incredible performer. And the first, because, he probably wasn't the first, but he was the first one exposed to the masses on television.
Right.
Because television was brand new. It was a new medium to bring this action into your home. So you could sit there watching. I know, you look at it, my kids in my house, I can't tell you, I probably have 13 television sets in this house. You have like 108, I know, just in the one wing. But my kids are always like, so what kind of TV did you have, in your room when you were a kid? I'm like, what? We had one television set in our house until I think when I was 18, I think we got a little black and white TV for my mom and dad upstairs in their bedroom. But it was, when I say little, it was probably 6 inches, the screen. And that was it. There was only one TV in the household. Not everybody had TV. So it's hard to imagine the significance of dad usually controlled the TV.
Right.
And you watch what dad wanted to watch. So that was your kind of exposure. But in the 50s and in the 60s, even more so, man, you took a trip downtown to stand outside of the appliance store to watch whatever they had on, to watch television. In a big match in Gorgeous George, that was an attraction. That made people leave their homes. Imagine if they had to pay for that. You had closed circuit. People would have done it because they left their homes. They would get dressed up in suits and leave their home and go stand outside of an appliance store, watch television.
I don't.
Couldn't hear it. Amazing.
For the record, I don't have 100 TV.
Oh, I'm sorry. 200.
Let's talk about something else that became popular.
Did you see that picture of of your guest house? Somebody tweeted out. They said, "Hey, is this Conradison?" And I don't answer anything on it. But they had a picture of your guest house with the 8 wings and everything. And I was like, I was insulted for you. I was hurt for you.
Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate that.
Because it didn't show the main grounds.
Let's talk about one of the other interesting characters I know you have a soft spot for in the history of wrestling, the French Angel. We haven't spent much time talking about him, but I know that he has a soft spot in your heart, and he's a big part of your collection, part of your life.
Yeah, the French Angel, Maurice Tillet. And this is before Andre the Giant. Maurice Tillet has, and I have the bust of his death mask, bronze that Paul Bosch got. But he had a head. So let's imagine it was the head of Andre the Giant on a 6-foot frame. He had the giant disease and everything, and he grew abnormally large. His head was very large. His hands were very large, but his body was normal size body. And he was booked, as they had God, they had Swiss angels, they had the angel, and he was the French angel, Maurice Tillet. They would call him, the freak of nature. This was another one of those that you would look at and it was just like, oh my God. Credited for being the inspiration for the movie Shrek. Mike Myers allegedly, designed Shrek kind of like French angel Maurice Tillet, but a very unique individual, and drew on his look and his freakish look for people to come and it's like, hey, you used to have it in carnivals when they would come to town and they would travel the circuit, and it was called the freak show, where you had like the bearded lady and the cheetah boy and just all these different freaks of nature, Siamese twins, and they're all gimmicks and stuff. Well, the French angel was that gimmick, and his gimmick was the size of his head, and then he had a very unique and kind of freakish look to him. When he was on his deathbed, he knew he was going to die. Bobby Manigoff, an old wrestler, a friend of Maurice Tillet, Bobby Manigoff talked him into having his head doing a death mask, because his head was so unique and just this large, abnormal head, that they got him to do the mask and do a death mask for him. That mold was then sent to Milo Steinborn in Florida. Milo sent it to Paul Bosch. Along the way, I believe Milo made a couple of wax molds from it. I think there's one in the York Barbell Museum. I think there's one in the Waterloo, Iowa Wrestling Hall of Fame. There's a gentleman somewhere, Milwaukee or Minnesota, I don't really know, and he has a wax one. I have the only bronze one because Paul got it, and Paul did a bronze of it. We got all the pictures of him, going through the process and being there and actually, breaking the plaster off of it for the bronze. But an amazing, those are, the two wax ones, and just an amazing looking character. Always heard from people that knew him. He, obviously he was French, but did a lot in Montreal. So a lot of my Montreal compatriots, they would always talk about just he didn't like the fame. He didn't like the people staring at him. He knew he was unusual. So he would always try and dress to the nines and, very nice suits, and would always wear a hat and try to have a hat that could cover as much of his head as he could. But, it's kind of hard to hide that. He went through life, I think, trying to be in the shadows a little bit. But incredible guy. And I'll post a picture, Dave, you can, of the bronze bust. And it's very, 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 very cool piece of art that I have. And the best part is, again, it's lifelike, it's life size and everything. I used to have my house in League City. I had a big glass front door. And as you came down the street, because I lived on a corner, you could see the door. And we had Maurice on a table that was kind of like in the hallway, and it was a profile of him. So I would leave the lights on behind Maurice, kind of like down in the living room area, and keep the rest of the house dark, so that as you came and approached the house, all you would see, and it would make it larger, is this silhouette of this monster head and everything. And I always felt that would kind of detract.
Well, I love hearing about your passion for Maurice, and it's almost like proud of the fact that you have the only bronze bust, and maybe you want to have a bronze bust of something that you hold near and dear to your heart. Our friends at Blue Chew can help. That's right. It's going to get you so hard even a cat couldn't scratch it. Blue Chew, in case you've been living under a rock, is not just for guys who have a problem. It's for guys who are looking to make an impression. It's for guys who are looking to get a 5-star rating, if you will. Blue Chew's a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. Take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. And the process couldn't get any simpler. Step 1, you sign up at bluechew.com. Step 2, you consult with one of their licensed medical providers. And then once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. And here's the best part, boys and girls. It's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversation, no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA, prepared and shipped directly to your door, all in a discreet package. But there won't be anything discreet about your package. Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. So discover your options at bluechew.com. Chew it and do it. And boy, do we have a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code WRESTLE at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's bluechew.com. The promo code WRESTLE. Receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we want to thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast. So, Bruce, another over-the-top character that we would meet through the world of wrestling, the original Sheik. I mean, my dude was running around with swords and fire. Oh, my. This was a character and a half, to say the least, no?
Man, beyond crazy. I think that Sheik lived the gimmick. For people who knew Ed Farhat, he was the Sheik. I don't know that many people really got to know Ed Farhat, and those that did always spoke very highly of him and just what a gentleman he was, and how many people that he helped get into the business, from his nephew Sabu, who he trained, Rob Van Dam. You hear these stories of, there was kind of the businessman Sheik, who could be ruthless and pretty cutthroat, and sometimes not always have the greatest reputation, to the human being who I've never really heard a bad thing about. People glowingly talk about him, and usually talk about how he helped their careers and was able to give them a place to go, but not just give them a place to go, give them the tools that they needed to go further in the business, and was always happy to help out. My experience with him was in Houston. When he would come in. The guy, you could look, if you were a wrestling fan, you got magazines, or you had any knowledge whatsoever of things outside of your own area, man, people heard of the Sheik.
Yeah.
He was on the covers. He was, just look at him, man. He was fearsome. He looked scary. And another one, man, that was a heel that if you saw out in public, you wouldn't approach. That was a heel when he came down the aisle. You didn't want to pat him on the back because you didn't know what he would do. He gave that air of crazy, that unpredictability, that believability, that you don't fuck with this guy or else you're going to get a pencil stuck in your head. And he was able to create this mystique about him. Drew everywhere he went. Now, he couldn't stay in a territory too long because kind of once you had seen it, you had seen it. Now, you could bring him back from time to time, and you always knew, like, if you had a hot baby face and you needed to get some heat on that baby face, you bring the Sheik in, and he can go and get that heat. It always amazes me how long, his territory was Detroit. He owned Detroit and ran Detroit, and the areas around Detroit. Many years, God, many years. The issues and programs he had with Bobo Brazil are just, countless. The Mighty Igor, you name it, they came through Detroit, and you worked with the Sheik for the United States Championship. And he was there every week. How he sustained that with that style and that gimmick is a testament to how over that gimmick was in that area. I remember, a not so good story, but it was, we had done an entire program, and the program was between the Sheik and Abdullah the Butcher. That the winner of the final match between Sheik and Abdullah was the winner would face Harley Race for the NWA championship. And it was like, Harley, you can't escape this one. The two wildest men in the business they want that world championship. And we had built up Abdullah and built up Sheik simultaneous to finally, it's like, okay, one of these guys is going to get the title and finally take it off Harley Race. And you get to the big blow off match. And again, Sheik knew from day one, we're going with Abby. Abby's, we got the date. Basically, we have the dates on Abby. We don't have the dates on you. So we get to the blow off where now Abby goes over and gets the shot with Harley. And Sheik gets to the building and going over the match. And Sheik says, yeah, I'm not going to do that for him. Paul's like, you're not going to do what? He goes, I'm not going to put him over. Not going to do that. And Paul made him, they made a sling. And they made a sling, and Paul made him go to the ring and stand in the ring while Paul basically cut a promo on him and said, like, this man who was signed a contract to be here tonight to face Abdullah the Butcher, who had agreed to it and actually showed up here, but has refused to honor his contract and do what we have asked him to do. Never said he was injured, but he wore a sling. They put a sling on him. And before Paul went to the ring, Paul said, go call a taxi and have a taxi waiting for him. I don't want him coming back to the dressing room. Get his shit and go and have a taxi. And, I'll never forget that because, God, I was 14 or something like that. And it was just so surreal because he stood there like a normal person in a suit. You talk about a fashion plate. The Sheik, go back and look at some pictures of the Sheik, man. All of his shit was custom made. He was a walking fashion, plate. He was unbelievable. Always dressed to the nines. But he's standing there in a suit and his thing on his head and a sling. And Paul cut this promo on him. So basically, to prove that he was here, that we signed him, that he is here, but he is refusing to honor his contract. And he got out of the ring, walked to the back. I forget. I think one of the seconds had his shit, and he took his bag, walked out the back door, and there was a taxi there waiting for him. Now the crazy thing about it was, Sheik and Abdullah were friends and had worked all over the world, and Sheik had put him over all over the world. So I never, that was one of the things I never got the story on why he didn't want to do that night. Because we didn't have the dates on him. And, he wasn't coming back anytime soon. And it was like, you're doing it for Abdullah. It was going to be a crazy, finish and all this shit. But he didn't want to lose, man. Wasn't going to lose. And that's, the cage match, the New York, what I call the New York cage match, was actually, legend has it, developed for the Sheik and Bruno.
You mean the escape clause?
The escape clause, yes.
Yeah.
Because neither guy
wanted to lose.
Like you didn't want to beat either guy.
Right.
So they had to escape from the cage. Which to me, coming from Texas, where a cage match was the ultimate blow off, nobody in, nobody out.
Yes.
You settle your difference inside a solid steel cage. About that salad.
I heard it. I love you for it.
Thank you. And that was it. But to me, the escape is kind of like you're running from your opponent. I get it for the heel, but I never got why babyface would want to get out of the cage. So but then when I heard the rationale behind it, I was like, okay.
Hey, so let's talk about some ladies. We haven't talked about any ladies at all. I don't know that you ever worked with her, but I've always been fascinated, and it never came up because I think it predated your tenure there. Did you ever meet Mad Maxine? I mean, she was like a 6'4" lady wrestler with a crazy mohawk. Like, man, that was a wild look in the 80s. What can you tell us about Mad Maxine?
So Maxine came from Moolah's training camp. She had gone there. Incredible look, man. I don't know how tall she was. Felt like she was close to 7 feet. She wasn't, but she
6'4", I think.
Yeah, large lady. Actually, with her hair and everything, beautiful. Just not made for this business. Entirely too nice, entirely too naive. She didn't really understand what she was getting into. And once she went out on the road, didn't have Moolah protecting.
I see.
So it was like she's out there and she's kind of wide-eyed and had never been to a territory. I think the first place that she went was Florida. Sent her down there and to work for Eddie Graham for a little bit. But she was green. They sent her to, again, great look, man. This is an attraction. And she would spike her hair up so that, if she was 6'4", she could be 6'8" with her hair. She came to Mid-South and they put her with Jack Victory and everything. And she did a few things. But there was a night and we were in the Superdome in New Orleans. She was out with Jack Victory and the Bushwhackers, I think. And she wanted to she didn't have like a top and everything that she wanted. So she had this idea to wrap herself in saran wrap. And like the top, just wrap herself in saran wrap and be just completely wrapped. You couldn't see anything, but it was actually kind of a cool look.
Yeah.
And in the match, at one point, I don't know if it's DJ or who it was, but whoever she was working with, like top got grabbed and she came out of her, she had a wardrobe malfunction. And for this, like, just incredibly, kind, sweet young lady that maybe the wrestling business wasn't for her, she was just absolutely mortified.
Yeah.
And, we lost her after that. She just was like, I didn't want to be in the business anymore after that. And I think she did the stint in New York after that, but that didn't last. She might have done it before, but I just will never forget that night trying to console her and just like, man, nobody cares. Just get over it. Try to tell her the story of Kamala and coming out of his trunks and everything split. And I said, you know what? People are going to have a moment in time that they'll talk about for the rest of their lives. Let them have that. Move on. It's not going to be broadcast anywhere, other than the people that were there that night. Who's ever going to know?
Right. Right.
But she was
Mortified.
She was mortified, and a very wholesome young lady. You look at her and go, "Wow, she's going to be different." But she was just this really wholesome, nice girl.
Talk to me about another character that I've never really learned a lot about, but I've heard some crazy stories. Wild Bill Curry. I mean, I heard once that,
oh my God,
there was a riot so bad that like 100 fans went to the hospital. I mean, that can't be real, right?
Oh God, Wild Bill Curry, man. So Wild Bill Curry was from Buffalo, New York. Had jet black hair and huge bushy eyebrows, man, and he was the Bruiser Brody of his day in the 50s and 60s, man. He was, Wild Bull Curry. And you talk about scary. He was another scary one that you believed everything that he did. If you look it up on YouTube, there's a match with Wild Bull Curry and Johnny Valentine from the Sam Houston Coliseum. Go watch that and then come back and tell me that wrestling's not real. Bull and Johnny beat the living shit out of each other. But that's just the way Bull worked. Bull was like, you're not going to see through anything I do. And he headlined everywhere he went and was crazy and unstoppable. He used to do this thing where he would hold his ear and take the other arm, kind of like, and Ernie Ladd stole it later on and hold it. And that's the way that he would sell. And people would just freak out, man, because it was so unique. It was different. And they would think, oh my God, he's really hurt because he's selling differently than everybody else. But he didn't care. Like, having a riot was the badge of honor. You got the crowd so invested in what you were doing, they believed every single thing that you were doing to their baby face, that they wanted to kill you. And again, in those days, different time, different place, that was the Medal of Honor. Oh, yeah, we had a riot last night. 100 people went to the hospital. Yeah, I caused that. Last thing you want, in this day and age, especially if you don't want to take your kids to some place where a riot could break out. But that was the era. That was that dangerous era. Wild Bull Curry personified that wildness. They credit, in Texas would always credit Bull Curry. I'm sure somebody else did it somewhere else in the world before it, but in the 50s or 60s for the first cage match, and it was in Galveston, Texas, but it wasn't actually a cage. They took fishing nets and they wrapped the ring in fishing net to cage them in and keep them in the ring. Well, as you could imagine, the fish net did not work, and it wasn't actually a cage, but it was, billed as a cage match to contain Wild Bull Curry. And that's the legend, in Texas of how the cage match came. And the fact that the fishing net couldn't contain Bull Curry. So they had to go to a solid cyclone fence that keeps, Doberman pinchers and German shepherds at bay, and they can't get out, and no one can get in or out of this because it's a cyclone fence. And it was a chain link fence. That was the legend of, the cage match in Texas, that it was attributed to Bull Curry. The original Brass Knucks Championship attributed to Bull Curry. because it was like that was the one thing, man. And it was started out as a trophy, the Brass Knucks trophy. And then it became, they took the old Texas championship and put Brass Knucks on it. And then we took the one that I have downstairs, the old US championship, and put Brass Knucks on it. But that all came from Bull Curry, man. He was an innovator. He was so ahead of his time and would cut these insane promos where it was like, I don't know what he said, but I believe it because he said it with conviction. And he was able to tell me a story that, by God, I had to be there on Friday night to see what he's going to do to Johnny Valentine. I had to be there to see what he's going to do to Ernie Ladd. And he wasn't the biggest guy in the world. And, in later years, he kind of looked like, he looked frail. He looked like an old man. But he was as tough as they came and absolutely, positively fearless. His day job was a prison guard. And when he wasn't working and he was just working like in the New York and Toronto area, he worked as a prison guard. When he retired, that's what he did. But he would always come down to Houston. Paul would always bring him in, man, every summer. Bring him in for a run as a referee, special guest, enforcer, something like that. And that's where I got the chance to meet him, to drive him around, to get to know him a little bit. And you talk about a character, man. He was on all the time, but one of the most charming individuals as well that you would ever want to meet. That's what I say. You were talking about all these monsters and gimmicks that you're afraid of. But if you got to know him, you just want to hug him because they're just so great. And Bull, God, last time was like last time I saw him was maybe 80, 81, 82. And he comes in and I pick him up at the airport and I take him, and he wants to go to, oh God, it was an old hotel, really old hotel. It was an old hotel in the 50s. All right. And he's like, let's go here and I'll go check in and get my room. And his room was probably available because the only, was pretty much about as close to a homeless shelter as you could get without actually being a homeless shelter at that point. But that's what he wanted to say. And it was the 80s, early 80s. But he was still looking for his rate from the 50s. Because you could get a room there for $2. And now I think down there, I think it was 15 or something like that. And he was like, no, my rate, my rate's $2. Ask, where's the manager? And shit. And everybody he had dealt with was long gone dead. But he wanted it. He wanted his rate. Stayed there anyway, begrudgingly, because he knew any place else was going to be a lot more than $15. But just the character and the nicest guy. It was like, and cheap, obviously, as you can tell by that story. But kind of like, kid, let me take you out for lunch. Thank you. Or let me take you to dinner. And you would go to the cheapest place in town where he used to go, that he would want to go, that he remembered. I remember when a steak was a quarter, and I'd go just to listen to the story because he was like, just push button and play, and he would go. Great guy. So ahead of his time.
Bruce, I had fun catching up with you today. We still need to talk about Native American gimmicks and Nazi gimmicks and Russian gimmicks and so many other crazy gimmicks in the future. But before we put a bow on today's episode, I know we started trying to say some nice words about somebody that made an impact in all of our wrestling fandom, Mr. Bray Wyatt. But we also lost, sadly, another person of our little wrestling community, and a big part of my childhood, especially with that whole Sergeant Slaughter, Hulk Hogan business. General Adnan I know that he did a lot of other things, but man, when he was out there during the Gulf War skirmish, that was a big part of my fandom. You got to know the real guy. Can you tell us anything about Mr. Adnan?
And then Al KC, his real name is much longer than that. So Adnan was Iraqi, and he was a hell of an athlete. He came from Iraq to Houston, Texas, and they wanted him to play football at the University of Houston. Adnan, tried football, didn't like it, didn't really like it, and he had wrestled in Iraq growing up. We did the backstory even a little further. We did the picture of Adnan celebrating with Saddam Hussein and Sarge and all that stuff. Well, Adnan actually went to school with Saddam Hussein in Iraq. So he actually did know him as a child. But anyway, so you go to got to Houston, and he's going to play football for University of Houston. Didn't like it, and he met Paul Bosch, and Paul, because he wanted to be a wrestler, got him into Oklahoma State University, not OU but OSU, and Adnan excelled at amateur wrestling in Oklahoma State University. So he always would credit Paul every time. It's kind of like Pat Patterson. You would hear the same stories every single time you'd see him in later years. But every time that I would see Adnan, when we brought him in with Sarge, he would talk about the fact that Paul Bosch was responsible for keeping him in this country and getting him into Oklahoma, and then helping him start his professional career, helping him get trained and helping him get booked and everything, and using him as Al KC was his name. He went on to become Billy White Wolf with an Indian gimmick, and was very successful. It's funny, Jay Strongbow used to get hot at him for portraying a Native American when Strongbow was Italian, portraying a Native American. And guys like Wahoo and guys like Gerald Briscoe and Jack Briscoe, who are Native Americans, that, didn't portray it in the same way that Strongbow and others did. Wahoo did. And Wahoo, full-blooded Chickasaw Choctaw, they would kind of take offense to the Strongbows of the world, the Billy White Wolves of the world and everything. But I always found it funny that Strongbow was like, yeah, he's not an Indian. Neither are you. It just that always struck me funny. But you got to work with him. When he was up here with Sarge, felt for him, because during all that, he was losing family members in Iraq during that war, and it was a very tough time for him. But wonderful human being, beautiful family, and he just was a great guy. Just really a great guy. But I always had that special connection because of Paul Bosch, because of Houston. And I've got the picture downstairs of some of the collages that Paul used to do with Al KC in there from like the stars of the 60s or whatever it was. And he's on that, and he was always one of them. And Paul just loved him. Paul was always thought that he should have been bigger, because he just thought he was a tremendous athlete and tremendous human being. The story itself, coming here from Iraq and wanting to get an education in the United States, and the only way he was going to be able to do it was through sports and through a scholarship. And Paul was always just so proud that he was able to help him get that education, and that he didn't embarrass Paul. He excelled in wrestling at OSU, and he excelled in his studies also. So that was always a real positive thing. But he's another great one, man, that will be greatly missed.
Well, we greatly appreciate all your time today. I know it wasn't easy to talk about Bray. We feel honored to have had time with Terry Funk and Bray, and certainly Adnan. And there's that old wives' tale that death comes in threes. And I hope this is the last time we have to talk about stuff like this for a while, because I'd like to have some fun next week. I'd like to talk about Batista. And there's one question in particular that we've been trying to get to the bottom of. We'll work on it next week. In the meantime, catch up with the new Hacksaw.
I'm gonna do that whole show silent next week. Just silent. This is what you're going to get next week.
We can talk about other stuff. We don't have to just talk about that. Hacksaw Hour is live now on adfreeshows.com. You get all these shows early and ad-free and a ton of bonus content. Check it out if you haven't already. Love to also help you advertise your business here with ADVERTISEWITHBRUCE.com. If your business is looking for men 25 to 54 years old, boy, we got them. And that's the reason you hear some of the same sponsors year after year, because it really works. With our super targeted audience, there's very little waste. We'd love to hook you up at ADVERTISEWITHBRUCE.com. We've got some new fun swag for you too over at SomethingToWrestleShirts.com. Something for everybody, shirts and hats and koozies. Oh my. We got some Yeti style cups, some doot fanny packs. Seriously, check it out. SomethingToWrestleShirts.com. It's one thing to hear the show. It's another to see it. Shout out to Dave Silva for helping us source some great photos for some of these over the top characters. Take a look at SomethingToWrestle.com. That'll get you right to our YouTube channel. Love to have you like and subscribe there. Throw us a comment. Let us know what you think. Give us a thumbs up, a thumbs down, whatever you think we deserved. And hey man, wherever you listen to us on your podcast, leave us a 5-star rating if you think we earned it, and interact on the show. You got a question about Batista? Man, we'd love to hear it. It's at Prichard Show on Twitter and Instagram, or Something to Wrestle over on Facebook. I'm pretty active on Twitter as well. I'm at Hey, it's Conrad. Over on IG, I'm at Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. You can follow Bruce, but he'll never tweet. It's at Bruce Prichard. And man, I had fun today talking about Bray, talking about some of these silly gimmicks. I think the highlight of the show will always be talking about those damn animals, whether it's tigers or bears or orangutans. My goodness, we learned a lot today, Bruce. Thank you for that. He's getting ready for Batista
for next week. Silva could actually just grab a still of that.
Yes.
And just leave that up for next week. One last just party. I'm going to say goodbye now. But you talked about just other gimmicks and everything. And one of the gimmicks that often gets overlooked is the cowboy.
Yes.
And some of those cowboys weren't actually really cowboys. I know it's hard to believe.
What?
Yeah. And one such that I know of is when this young kid broke into the business. And his first territory that he was sent to was California, Los Angeles, to be exact. And he was from Texas. And he was in the dressing room, and the announcer came up and says, "Are you the cowboy?" Like, sorry, what? He goes, "Are you the cowboy?" No. Well, you're the kid from Texas, right? Yeah, I'm from Houston. This is all right. Yeah, you're the cowboy. And that night, he learned of his new gimmick, his first territory, as Cowboy Tom Prichard.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, go get a cowboy hat, because you're a cowboy now, because you come from Texas. And he became Cowboy Tom Prichard in that night. Yeah. Found out, well, you're from Texas, you got to be a cowboy. How many cows you got, boy? Tom was about as far from cowboy as you.
Well, we'll pick up where we left off talking about gimmicks sometime soon. But next week, Bruce, we're finally getting to
your gimmick.
We're going to get to the bottom of Batista's gimmick next week, right here on Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard.
Rock on. Okay, Silva, grab this still.
Will you stop?
We had a blast at StarCast 6. A huge thank you to everyone who attended. And if you want to relive our stage show experience, you can with Premier Streaming Network. Over 20 stage shows took place StarCast weekend. From comedy shows, design panels, musical performances, talk shows, and more. Including a live edition of AEW Unrestricted with CEO Tony Khan. Sign up for Premier Streaming Network today and check out the shows available now on demand and in HD. And if you sign up today, you'll get 2 months free of Premier Plus. Enjoy the amazing lineup of content that Premier Streaming Network offers, including all 5 previous StarCast stage show lineups. Hundreds of hours of fantastic wrestling content at your fingertips. Visit StarCastOnPremiere.com.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what AdFreeShows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-Free Shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus, ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that AdFreeShows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. AdFreeShows.com.